In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph the sacred river ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea.
I think we found our intro.
Tales from the Crypt.
Wow! Your boy Marty fucked up. What is
Bigly.
up, What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy Marty Bent, and holding my hand up here, I just messed up. I just had an incredible 20-minute conversation with my guest and did not hit record. So we were speaking into the abyss. I learned a lot in that 20 minutes. We are going to reverse it. I'm going to speed up this intro. I gave him a nice... you know what? I'm going to give you the same intro as I did the first time.
Please.
My guest tonight, you all know him in some way or fashion. You don't hear from him much. He's had one big bang moment, and it was around this time last year, on July 12th, 2017, when during the Federal Reserve, it was a congressional committee, actually. It was a congressional committee grilling the Federal Reserve chairwoman, Janet Yellen. And our dear friend here had the gall to sit behind her and hold up a buy Bitcoin sign as serendipitously as a ticker below the Bloomberg. The Bloomberg ticker was had the headline, Federal Reserve is not open to an audit. I want to introduce you all to Bitcoin Sign Guy. Bitcoin Sign Guy, for the second time, welcome to Tales from the Crypt. How are you?
Thank you so much, Marty, and for your charitable introduction.
Well,
it's very kind.
I'm sorry. I feel like I just wasted 20 minutes of your valuable life.
No, that's okay. Now there's lore around this episode. It's the lost
conversation.
Creative output.
It was creative, and I think we're going to build on it. So we're going to jump right into it so we don't waste too much time anymore. You have an incredible tale that leads up to that fateful day on July 12th, 2017. Let's get into your tale How did you find Bitcoin? What year? And where were you?
Sure. So my tale from the crypt is not particularly... I was not a forerunner of Bitcoin by any means. It was not a Promethean. But I was rather pushed into Bitcoin rather than pulled. Via negativa, to use a Nassim Taleb concept. And I developed my interest in it through opposition to legacy finance rather than because I was a smarty at cryptography or distributed networks or any of that other good crypto anarchy stuff that was floating around. So I had two experiences that drew me in, or pushed me in, rather. One was my junior year of college, studying abroad in Argentina, working on a currency trading desk in Buenos Aires, and just seeing the wacky stuff that country does to get its hands on dollars or sound money in general. Far be it from me, by the way, to refer to dollars as sound money. However,
comparatively speaking,
compared to the peso, the dollar has had better monetary management. It's certainly in the Hall of Fame of poorly managed currencies.
The peso, yes.
Yes.
It's pretty piss poor. They just had to take out a loan from the IMF a year after issuing 100-year treasury bonds. I said this on our first recording. If any of you assholes buy a 100-year treasury bond, you're an idiot, unless you plan to live for 150 years, which, hey, might be possible.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not an idiot. Maybe you're making a good con.
In general, Latin America has given us many lessons in monetary restraint.
Yeah.
My dad actually, by the way, fun fact, was, and this is deeper than we really need to go, but he was a CIA brat raised in Caracas.
Oh.
Grandfather was a commie hunting CIA. He grew up in Caracas, and it was an urban metropolis back then. not so much these days. So
No. I think I talked about this earlier today with JW Weatherman. There was a stat on Twitter today that irregardless is a word that's debatable, of Bitcoin's 70% plus plummet from its heights in December of 2017. If you were to buy Bitcoin with bolivars at that point, at the height of Bitcoin's price, you would still have the same purchasing power in Venezuela, even though the price of Bitcoin has fallen 70%. Or it's probably, it's around 70% since it's cited like around $20,000.
Man.
So that purchasing power, even though Bitcoin's fell that far, the Venezuelan bolivar has inflated so much in the last 6 months that Bitcoin was actually a better store value.
That's why I tell everyone to sell their Bitcoins for Magic the Gathering booster packs, because they only go up. If you get that Black Lotus, man, it has outperformed every shitcoin in the book.
The Black Lotus. Are you Magic the Gathering guy?
No. That's just some compot. Follow him on Twitter for you.
That's good to know. I'm always looking for a good follow. So, you're in Argentina. You're working for this bank. What's your second brush with disenchanting experience in the finance world?
The second is closer to home. In fact, it's basically nearly at home. In Connecticut, I worked as an intern for a global macro hedge fund, and witnessed firsthand the central bank monoculture that dominates modern markets. And there are fund managers there that are tasked with maintaining the price level of the economy, correcting mispricings, and they practically all their activity is predicated on which way they think the Federal Reserve will move rates. And if there's real economic data, it's always interpreted through the filter of, well, which way does this sway the dot plot?
The dot plot. The dot plot. And what was the other chart with all the fucking lines from there? I think it was GDP. Was it GDP or inflation growth? I don't know what it is, but it has like all the lagging. Like, here's what we predicted here, and it came nowhere close to where we predicted, so we have to control it here. They look like a bunch of like fucking worms on top of each other. Yeah. That's what modern finance bases its pricing mechanism off of.
Yeah, I was, I had to say I was dismayed when I see these people. They all attended great schools. Half of them were PhDs in statistics and stuff like that, and math and physics, etc. And they would look each other in the face and say, without a shred of irony, what does the purple jacket mean when Janet's wearing it before, like when she walks out? Two Sigma is a fund. They do machine learning, I believe, on all Fed testimony. And, it's gets so granular and minute in detail. It's like these are inconsequential things compared to the way that certain indicators are trending, but this is what they trade on. And so it thereby disrupts the most fundamental coordinating cost in the economy. And I mean, I'll let the true economists tell you more about how important that is. I think
this is a good learning moment for the freaks out there. So the rate that Bitcoin Sign Guy is referring to is the federal funds rate. And for you freaks that don't know what the federal funds rate is, it is the rate at which banks trade their reserves. So it basically dictates the price of money, right? At the end of the day, is that correct?
I mean, certainly the cost of credit.
Yeah, the cost of credit. Yeah.
And thereby the coordinating link between the present and the future. Mm-hmm. And try sorting your time preference on that basis.
Yeah,
so
and especially when the Fed funds rate's at 25 bips for almost a decade.
Yeah. So those were the two negative experiences, and simply put, they did not reconcile. I was unable to reconcile them with my most vanilla sort of classical liberal, classical econ theory, Smith, Bastiat, Ricardo, Mill, Hayek, Mises, moving in that direction later. But I was unable to basically reconcile it with what seemed to be sound. And so it led me to reopen a book that I had previously closed, which was Bitcoin in 2013. I must have just seen an article that said Bitcoin popped, womp womp, and
There was a lot of those.
Thought nothing more of it other than to put a Post-it on it. And so I re-looked at Bitcoin and started heading down that rabbit hole.
What year is this again?
This is summer 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the end of that internship that summer, I had basically sold myself on Bitcoin and had no qualms for burning my bridge with the legacy financial system. And so at that point, I went into senior year and I was still swirling in the in the rabbit hole at that point. Crypto Twitter didn't help much with that. I mean,
it's I don't want to say it's a disease, but it's addictive.
It was the one social media that I relapsed on. I had previously cut out Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. But I found that I needed Crypto Twitter to understand it, to understand the dynamics of Bitcoin. So still swirling around, I found my way to DC to work at generally a free market think tank that shall remain nameless, where I studied the political and economic dynamics of Bitcoin and also monetary policy, which was the pretext for me being in that hearing that fateful day.
So let's get to that fateful day.
Well, I never expected it to be viral. I merely knew that...
Whoa, back up. What the hell happened? Like,
what the hell happened?
Did you expect to hold up the sign when you came in? Did you come in with the sign?
No, not premeditated. I made the sign in about 2 minutes before I held it up. And, it happened to be... There was some irony to the moment that I held it up, but it was completely unpremeditated. I simply, I knew that perhaps my coworkers from the previous summer were certainly watching it and that they'd see it. My dad also works in financial markets, so it was my hi pop moment.
Hey, Papa.
And so I simply wanted an image that I could pull up the live stream later, harvest it, keep it as a little keepsake. But 45 minutes later, I was escorted out by the parliamentarian in the hearing. And that I didn't know that it was viral at the time. My phone was dead. But when I got back to my office, all my co-interns said, "Oh, dude, you're blowing up, bro. And by the way, people want to give you money, and there's already scammers trying to collect it in your stead." So they urged me to post a Bitcoin address.
Crypto Ethan was the first I saw on Crypto Twitter. It's like, it's
Ethan.
my boy. That's my boy.
Shout out Crypto Ethan.
Shout out Crypto Ethan. We're going to diverge here a little bit and talk about the first time I met Bitcoin sign guy.
Wait, hold on. Crypto Ethan, dude, you're a stud. You're fire flames.
Hung.
And you deserve a... I don't want to use such a charged word as deserve, but go find yourself a crypto
A crypto bay.
You got it, bro.
So
Marty and I will wingman you.
I tried to wingman him hard the first time we met. This is a perfect segue into the first time we met. Bitcoin sign guy, Crypto Ethan, and I met about a month ago at Blockchain Week.
Snake Oil Week.
Snake Oil Week. Snake Oil Week is correct. It was a Monday night happy hour thrown by some Telegram group that shall not be named. A rooftop hotel. Ton of suits. Huge names in crypto. Pretty sure Brian Kelly was there. Pump and Ripple in the corner. A lot of VCs, a lot of suits, a lot of people that, frankly, if you're asking me, think they're more important than they actually are. And in there, I was sitting there. I grabbed my first drink. I was looking around. One friend that was there was Mike Dudas. We were talking. Somebody I was happy to see there was him, and we talked for a little bit. And then I saw your face from afar, and I said, could it be? Could it be?
It's written in the stars.
Very, very recognizable. Among all the suits, among all the people that you've seen on Twitter and all that bullshit, I wanted to talk to you. So I walked up to you and Crypto Ethan, introduced myself. And that's because I truly believe that you have done more for the cryptocurrency space and Bitcoin in particular. Let's just say Bitcoin. You have done more for Bitcoin than any of those suits that think they're very important and think they're actually doing good work and ICOing shit have done for the whole space, because you were a part of the greatest meme in Bitcoin history. The juxtaposition. I wrote a newsletter. I already read the whole newsletter. I'm not going to read it again. It took too much time. I actually read the newsletter, then noticed we weren't recording for the first time around. But the juxtaposition of you holding up the Buy Bitcoin sign, Janet Yellen giving testimony that she cannot audit the Fed, as on TV, you said you did not know this. It was impossible for you to know. But the ticker on Bloomberg was Janet Yellen, : the Fed will never be audited, or something like that.
I'm strongly opposed to audit.
I'm strongly opposed to audit the Fed. And the juxtaposition of your Buy Bitcoin in that headline is so fucking poetic and so beautiful. It had to be written about. And I think will live on in eternity because the juxtaposition is so fucking strong. Like, Janet Yellen, you can't audit the Fed. We can't be transparent. I think she actually said in that testimony as well that they're very transparent. But you're holding up the Buy Bitcoin sign behind her, which is a technology that is audited every 10 minutes and is as transparent as possible. And I think we're going to look back. We're going to have gray beards. We're going to be walking around with canes, drinking Manhattans later in life. And you're going to be, I think you might be in a textbook one day.
Well, that's extremely charitable. But in the words of an anarchist friend of mine, you just have to let the objective irony of the universe fill your sails. And
what a quote.
And where better to sail to than to a place where you can wage asymmetric cultural warfare unending against the central banks.
And here's where we get into the philosophy. Why are you into this? So you've been very philosophically charged, I guess more so since your last internship that you quit. And
sure.
And you are very, I don't want to say ideological, but you're very pure in your philosophy behind this stuff.
Well,
so who inspires you?
Thank you. So as I said, it started with the classical economists and the Austrian school as well. But as I go deeper into thinking more of the
robust
political repercussions of Bitcoin, it takes on somewhat of an anti-state form. So you start to look at Murray Rothbard, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Tim May, Nick Land, Mencius Moldbug.
You can read off your list. I told him he's not allowed to read. You can read.
I don't want to leave anyone out. And then there's also on the fringe of the cryptocurrency space, there's the free banking school, George Selgin and Larry White. Mm-hmm. These are people whose ideas I've tried my best to familiarize myself with.
That's Mencius Goldbug in particular. He was the subject of the first ever issue of Marty's Bent, his bubble theory of money paper or blog post, and very good blog post. You should go. I think it's on Nick Saba's. I could be wrong.
It's around Google.
It's around, yeah, Google. Mencius Moldbug. money is a bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then after the theory, I really came to admire most the people that were practitioners of the theory. And, libertarianism has this completely fatal romanticism with their own defeat.
What do you mean by that? With their
They love to lose. Like, look at Gary Johnson's pathetic run for presidency.
people weren't ready for Ron. People were not ready for Ron.
I think they understand that the system is not designed for them to win. So they are happy being, this white knight sort of riding off into the sunset for ideas that everyone just completely dumps on all the time. So to that, it's people that can distill the theory and sort of transact it with real politics rather than just pontificating that I'm most drawn to. So first and foremost, the anarch prime, or I use the word anarch, which is Ernst Junger's concept of a person who builds something and creates a functional object to express themselves, rather than just the anarchist, which is sort of infantile, ineffective, nihilistic, etc. So people that have really built practical applications of this theory. The first one is Satoshi, and all of his predecessors, Wei Dai, Adam Back, Nick Szabo, the list goes on. But wow, what an effort by Satoshi, whether it's one person or a consortium of cryptographers and cypherpunks. I'm in awe of you and in your debt.
Would you call the Bitcoin white paper a stroke of genius?
It was. This may be blasphemy, but I almost seem like it almost seems to me as though it was just the logical combination of previous experiments.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most suppressed ideas I have. And
let it out.
Let it out. And I would like a protocol engineer who knows the straight dope on this to correct me if I'm wrong. But Bitcoin almost is late. It seems like it could have worked much earlier in the timeline of the internet.
Yeah, well, if you talk to internet protocol developers in particular, so you get a 404 error if the website's down, if the server's down, right? And that's a web serving, content serving layer of the internet, I believe. I could be completely wrong on this, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's multiple errors. There's like 402 to 404, I believe. And I believe the 402 error that you never see because there was never any protocol like plugged into it is the payments layer error. And that like they conceived the internet at TCP/IP level, right, thinking there would be a payment level, but they never had the censorship resistant, decentralized alternative, and that might be Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's been an old idea actually. Friedman had the idea. Hayek sort of traced the idea with his statement that there would be some non-state money that would be subtly introduced and would eventually be beyond the state's ability to co-opt or halt.
It was Hayek who said that we'll never be able to fix money until we wrest it out of the hands of the government, correct?
That too.
Yeah.
That too. Smart guy.
And we've done that. And
we're on our way to doing that.
We are on our way to that. So beyond Bitcoin, like you seem like you seem very dead set on becoming a sovereign individual and making that happen.
I mean, who doesn't want self-determination.
Some people don't.
For me, there's no middle ground on that.
I would say me too, but some people don't.
But to return to my litany of other successful anarchs, I have to shout out Ross Ulbricht, The Silk Road, Cody Wilson, Defense Distributed, Amir Taki, Libitcoin, Aaron Schwartz.
Rest in peace. Let's talk about Aaron Schwartz for a little bit, for people who might not know about him, because that's the fact that he had to end his life because of what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have to end his life, but he would have spent life in jail for something so minute.
Yeah. Liberating the libraries of MIT to the web.
It was JSTOR, right? The JSTOR. I thought it was a JSTOR thing.
JSTOR at MIT, okay. I think.
Yeah, and so this dude, what Aaron Schwartz basically did was download a bunch of files you're gonna only get access to if you were paying like the university fee, and students got access to this, but he was open sourcing these documents on, was it BitTorrent or?
To be honest, I don't know.
Yeah. And he got prosecuted for stealing intellectual property and wound up taking his life in jail because he was going to spend double life sentences, I believe. Completely fucked up. The free flow of information should be free flowing. Like he should not have been threatened with life in jail for freeing information.
So other practitioners of liberty, I would say Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, and then now we're in a better place because these ideas can be expressed entrepreneurially because we have Bitcoin. So we have.
How does Bitcoin make this happen?
It's just a framework for other sort of liberty enabling startups to exist. The decentralized exchanges, HODL HODL, BISC, CoinJoin, Dark Wallet, etc.
Open Dime.
Forgot
about it again. You forgot about that the first time too.
Still trying to get my hands on a cold card. Azteco and Lightning Labs.
Shout out Elizabeth and Roast Beef. I'd love to have you both on this podcast.
Overdue. So it's those people that sort of I aspire to, make a contribution akin to theirs.
And how do you see yourself doing this? Through building a business that enables people to become self-sovereign, writing code?
I mean, just covering fire for Bitcoin to get out the door.
I love that. I love that.
Holy shit. We can go into later. We can talk about my conspiracy that there's actually a fifth pillar within the global world order, which is the fifth pillar is the faction within that subverts the sort of mission of the state. So, Jay Clayton, are you fifth pillar?
Giancarlo. He's Chad as fuck.
Yeah. But otherwise...
Well, these people are individuals at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
That's what people have to realize. Like, not all government employees are evil.
But certainly, I don't want to rely on these people.
No. You can be self-sufficient.
So, transitioning from the theory to, where this takes our economy, our society... sometimes I think about, what is the medium of Bitcoin, and what is sort of the lineage it has of decentralizing technologies. So this invokes cybernetics. Marshall McLuhan has the great technological determinist text. The medium is the message. and figuring out how the media over which we transact and communicate influence our very world.
That's why Twitter is the best. That's why I love Twitter.
It's a good medium.
Can we take a step back and can you define cybernetics for the freaks out there?
Cybernetics. Oh dear.
Briefly, make it quick.
It's simply the sorting the way that digital systems map onto human experiences.
That was very succinct and very dead on.
So in terms of these technologies, the most recognized would be the printing press, subverting the monopoly over theological truth of the Catholic Church. We have, in my view, the golden age of navigation and private navigation, subverting.
What do you mean by private navigation?
Private map making companies. I'm a sailor, so I'm a cartographic geek of some way.
Yeah. That was monopolized at one point?
Oh yeah. In fact, there still is a deep state apparatus to this day for maps. The military has the best maps in the world. It's called their national geospatial agency or something like that.
So you're saying our maps not be what we think they are?
No. In many ways, we're overturning that monopoly. I mean, it's been overturned, but we have now, for example, Google Earth.
I never knew this. You're not going into a flat Earth argument, are you?
Guys, all I'm saying is that the flat earthers know the arguments for the round Earth inside and out. Okay? That's all I'm saying. They know the arguments for the round Earth better than you. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
That's hilarious.
So, other sort of subversive technologies, we have printable guns of defense distributed. Will this? What does this do to the military-industrial complex?
I showed my parents. My parents were up for my birthday a few weeks ago, and I don't know. We were talking about Bitcoin, talking about liberty. They were like, "What?" We were just got on the subject. We were a couple bottles of wine deep, and I was like, "You know what? I come from a very anti-gun family. I mean, I'm not anti-gun personally, but I was not allowed to watch Power Rangers growing up because they had guns. We never grew up. We grew up in Northeast Philly, never had a gun. My mom was a parole officer in North Philly, taking down crack addicts and shit like that.
For people that have guns.
And she never held a gun. She was running through the streets of North Philly without a gun, risking her life. I can't believe that my mom was a parole officer one time. But
that's legit.
We never had guns. We moved down to South Carolina. The culture shock of how many people owned guns.
Jameson Lop. Your neighbors were all Jameson Lop.
Basically. We showed up down there, and I think the second day we lived there, my 3-year-old neighbor, I shit you not, was outside with a BB gun shooting squirrels. My mom almost had a heart attack. Regardless, with that being said, we're not a gun family. I think people should be able to own guns. I think there should be logical gun laws where if you're going to go buy a gun at a store, you should have a background check. It should be pretty rudimentary. But beyond that, we brought up defense distributed in particular, and I showed my mom the video of 3D printing guns and was like, she was blown away.
They're extremely elegant, by the way. They're all a work of art. Look up defense distributed on YouTube.
Why do you say they're a work of art?
Oh, Cody has a talent.
Right. Well, it plays into this whole thing of liberty. People want to, my mom was like, we should stop this. It's there is no stopping this. This is software. This is language.
Exactly.
So let's get into that philosophy. At some point in the future, people are going to be able to 3D print guns at their house. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. So it's either accept it and try to work within that reality, or deny it and fall behind.
Yeah. I mean, digital systems and Bitcoin is a great example
Well,
of this.
I wanna-
Are routing around the traditional means of
And
control.
but they're using language at the end of the day.
It's so far ahead of whatever is on the law books. And lastly, the last sort of big disruptive, that's word is cliche, I take it back. The self-spun spectacle of social media and having individuals being in the spotlight, even for a moment, versus just accepting the mainlining cable news. This is going to have a lasting effect on monoculture.
It is having a profound effect. It is. It's not. It will. It is.
Mm-hmm. So in the same way, Bitcoin is doing this for financial sovereignty against central banking and against fiat currency. And so at this point, it circles back to the beginnings of my theoretical foundations, classical liberalism, and what has Bitcoin become. It's not just Bitcoin anymore. We have a plethora of shit coins. And so...
Are you a maximalist?
I am a maximalist.
Why is that?
I mean, Bitcoin is the only viable blockchain in my view. It has the immaculate conception.
I tend to agree.
It has the perfect monetary policy.
That's.
But I will argue for something that may disconcert some dyed-in-the-cloth maximalists. I love Kevin Pham, but
I love you too, Kev.
I love Kevin Pham, but the argument he makes that ETH is a security is his worst argument because financial sovereignty, like freedom of speech, like the right to defend yourself with a gun, is a liberty that is not without cost. Financial sovereignty means other people have the financial sovereignty to launch, kooky investment ideas. And this is, for the same reason that we have the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. We protect these rights because they have costs.
Well, I would argue all this stuff falls under the First Amendment because at the end of the day, it is language.
There you go.
It is written word.
If that has been successfully argued in court
in the 90s, right?
So to that, I would say, as a Bitcoin maximalist, I would hasten to denounce shitcoins, but I won't tattle on them to the SEC.
Yeah, I had that discussion this afternoon with J.W. Weatherman. I was like, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think they will fail in their merit in due time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it'll be good for us. It's like, hey guys, we were able to boo these people out of the stadium, etc.
And that proves a different type of organization and
different
sort
type
of justice.
A different type of human security.
So let's get into this. Like, we are transitioning into a new paradigm, I would argue.
Mm-hmm.
A new way of organizing society. I think you feel strongly about this as
Right.
well. Like, how is the world going to change, or how would you like it to change with these technologies?
More peer-to-peer, more bottoms-up. And keep in mind, when something is peer-to-peer, it removes the point at which your activity is engineered. So, if you're using an app, Facebook's app with those little bright red notifications, they turn you into a mouse on a little treadmill. It's nuts. So Bitcoin really boils it down. We hope that it will turn out to be something that flattens human interaction, and there won't be a puppet master that is controlling you, trying to make you waste time and clicks and eyeballs, and spend your coins on junk.
Right, and that's what Safe and I got into is, again, it all comes back to time preference too. And are you willing to save and think for the future? I can't imagine a world where like you buy an iPhone and you expect to have it for 10 years, but like hopefully in a Bitcoin enabled world, like it'll be longer.
I have an iPhone, but I have an old iPhone. But what I'm really waiting for, and my experience is outstripped by the pros in this regard. Calling on a Ledger and Trezor to make a phone that is designed from a security first standpoint rather than a capabilities first standpoint, like the iPhone is, for example. I would be a buyer of that.
I like that framing. Security first versus usability first.
I've never actually,
I saw the trade-offs thing.
I've never transacted.
You're going back to a Nokia brick.
I almost did. I kid you not. I almost did. But I would prefer to have less digital exposure and more security. But I've never transacted Bitcoin on my phone, lamentably, because I just don't trust it.
What do you mean you don't trust it? You don't trust it'll track you, or you don't trust holding it on your phone?
There's just hidden vulnerabilities in just the operating system that's written by people that aren't Bitcoin first cypherpunks.
Right.
But, Bitcoin first cypherpunks could probably write some code to help you dial your grandmother to wish her happy birthday, and put like text messaging and apps into a hardware wallet.
Well, I think Keybase is getting the software figured out. You a big fan of Keybase at all?
I don't know enough about them to give an educated opinion. But
Keybase, in my mind, is I think they have the software figured out for what you're looking for. I think because you can do group chats and shit like that. I don't know that they have voice capabilities yet. They may get there in the future. But if you couple that with like a Trezor and their hardware capabilities, I think we're not too far from what you're envisioning right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly hope so. But in the meantime, still using an iPhone. We're still mired in shitcoins. It's funny. We were raised on these fairy tales about decentralization from Silicon Valley, digerati.
Digerati.
And there's people who write books on blockchain, this and that. And they're really selling something that doesn't exist. I would call it the hyper-real blockchain. It's more real than real. It's more real than Bitcoin. When you find a real blockchain, you're disappointed because it doesn't stream 4K and have a 10-second sync time, and it doesn't democratize advertisement revenue on the dental plan of your choice. Blah blah blah. So Conquest's laws, it says any institution that's not explicitly conservative shall become leftist, progressive, etc. Conquest's laws also apply to Bitcoin, in that organizations that are not explicitly maximalist Bitcoin first will become these shitcoiners. So at this point, I'd like to shout out Zappo and Wences for leaving a lot of money on the table. But this is
for somebody who, in particular, when it came down to SegWit 2x and the battle of last summer, was willing to swallow his pride and admit he may have been misguided in trying to push SegWit 2X forward in particular.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of lunacy that these Silicon Valley people throw at us, and there's
they're going to save Africa. They're going to save the world. They're going to do everything. That's the thing that pisses me off the most is that these people, I will say these people for these people, they think they're going to save the world. They fucking never even been to where the parts of the world they think they're going to save. They don't know what the people need. They don't know exactly how to help them, and they don't know what the people, how the people want to help themselves. Nobody ever asks that.
All they want to do is apply Fordism, like the Henry Ford production line, to ICOs. They do the team, the white paper, the SAFT, spin it up, and ship it off. Yeah, I won't name names, but you know the names.
Have to. You don't have to.
You know the names. You know the names.
It's all fucking virtue signaling bullshit, though. I'm drunk. We're vodka drunk now, and Marty gets bold on vodka drunk, and
oh boy.
But seriously, like these people, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but like from somebody who's helped start an inner city lacrosse program and actually gone, like when I lived in Chicago, went deep into the West and South Side and tried to help these kids with no role models out. Like you realize that like not throwing money at the problem does not solve these problems. Yeah. These are cyclical problems that need really, really involved and ingrained people to fix it. Like sending money to these places is not going to solve their problems.
They have their buzzwords. They're on democracy right now. Democracy, it's just a technology. And there are some crypto managers who shall not be named who were touting liquid democracy lately. Liquid democracy in
got a friend. We had Santiago Siri here, who's the head of Democracy Earth. They're trying. I respect the shit out of Santi. They're trying to create liquid democracy. I think he's doing it with the best intentions, and I think he's trying to push the envelope forward. To
crib a quote from Nick Land, liquid democracy trades on a platform of its own annihilation. So if you have,
what's that mean?
If you have a truly liquid democracy, a referendum that's very close to the surface is, do we shut down this government? To which I would vote yes. So I think that these people, they're despotic and they neglect the benefit of spontaneous order and a more smooth space, devoid of barriers. That's just a grid, like a trellis, like what your mom's roses grow up or whatever. It's just like a creeping vine on a grid. Let it just be a clear space, and have people fill in as they see fit.
This is a great segue into on-chain governance. Is it possible, and does it make any fucking sense?
No comment. So next question.
I'm gonna cut out comment from that in the post edit. I'm just gonna say no.
So I mean, I do think that we are certainly approaching new forms of government, but they're not necessarily on chain, and they don't update in 10-second blocks. We have neocameralism. That's sort of Mencius Moldbug's joint stock republic idea that is certainly provocative and attractive. We have other experiments in systems of government that devolve our current the monolithic, the Uber state, into smaller things. So we have Estonian e-residency. We got Lieberland if you're interested. Seasteading.
Where geographically is Lieberland again?
It is. Oh, I should remember this better. It's on the Danube, and it's between Croatia and the state across from Croatia on the Danube, Slovakia maybe.
Yeah, it's just like woods, right?
It's just woods. But the point being that we are experimenting with new ways of governing ourselves, and the revolution against the superstate is not going to be head on, but it will be acidic. It will dissolve larger things into smaller things. We even have Tim Draper,
acidic.
just a big vat of acid. We have Tim Draper, Bitcoin's own, pounding the pavement for 3 Californias. That's pretty good.
Do you think he's washed his tie?
Bitcoin
tie that he wears everywhere?
The Save the Children tie?
No,
or the purple Bitcoin one. Yeah. It's great style.
Great style. I don't know if he's ever washed it though. Maybe it's his lucky tie.
I mean,
when I went to high school, I was at an all guys prep school. I wore the same jacket for 4 years.
Yeah,
I think I washed it twice.
I mean, treat your clothes well, and they'll treat you well. This is the preppy ethos. You saw me wearing that seersucker at the hearing.
You guys can't see Bitcoin sign guy right now, but he looks sly as fuck.
So yeah, we are approaching a cyber feudalist moment.
Cyber feudalist moment.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
It will, when we have many more smaller states, will look more like the Middle Ages, when there was a system of ordered anarchy among small city states. Keir Martland.
Is this preferable?
Certainly. Keir Martland is a I guess historian who presented. He gave a great talk at Hans Hermann Hoppe's Property and Freedom Society. He spoke about how the Middle Ages was actually a time of stability under feudal ordered anarchy. That's sort of a weird Burkean way of putting it. But
some of the best literature, some of the best art, some of the best architecture came out of that period, right?
Yeah. So this is the cyber Gothic population decline in the Middle Ages. We also had counter urbanization. Everyone today wants to live on a farm, but they can't.
What do you mean?
Oh, I mean, everyone is just sucked into the cities almost against their will, it seems.
I say this a lot. I have a love-hate relationship with the city. My wife is about to pull all of her hair out. She's fucking tired of New York City.
Well, you can actually homestead on a 1/4 acre. So feel free to go buy some cattle, buy some pigs.
I brought this up. People think I'm crazy. I'm like,
I
want to own a cow.
Get some seeds, plant a garden, but not to commit carnivory blasphemy.
Carnivory blasphemy? Did you just call Bitcoin carnivory blasphemy?
No, not to commit blasphemy of the Bitcoin carnivory school. Shout out to Michael Goldstein, Pierre Richard, Safedine. I'm trying to eat more red meat every day and practice sound nutrition to complement my sound money.
Yes, we do not want to get stuck in that fiat food, as Safedine would refer to it, the industrial sludge that going off the gold standard sort of allowed. And it's crazy to think that. So what do you think? You're younger than I. You're younger than I am.
By a tad.
By a tad, but you're still. I feel like kids our age. I'm not gonna refer to us as kids because I want to stay young. I feel. I don't want to sound cocky or like. I don't want to sound cocky, but like I feel like we are the first. Like, hey. Maybe shit's fucked up. Maybe we should really press this button. Like I have And maybe it's because we have nothing to lose because we're so young, and it's like, let's just go full-fledged for this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
sort of my mentality.
This is my strategy for the Bitcoin ecosystem. All people that orbit Bitcoin, you are called to the cyber jihad that is hodling. And
Bitcoin terrorism is real.
I mean, don't resist these negative sounding words. They're made pornographic in our day, but be
in retrospect they will be looked on with.
Be willing to commit to cult-like behavior, and
cult-like behavior. We talked about this before we recorded.
Yeah,
even the first recording. You are fond of cult-like behavior.
Absolutely. It's a way to route around the algorithm that consolidates and suppresses anything against the mainstream direction, the flow toward the perfected neoliberal system. And so we, as Bitcoiners, it's our duty to optimize for chaos and commit ourselves to activities that seem incredibly negative, like watching candidly your net worth plummet by 80%. But this is how you get around the control. The control is optimized for, one, violence. You see how well Ruby Ridge turned out. That was a sort of head-on conflict.
So what happened in Oregon?
Yes. And so the system responds to violence well, but otherwise it's just optimized for digital commerce, views, clicks, attention, and
vapid shit.
And so if you can eschew your Amazon Alexas, Pornhub, your foodie Instagrams, and your Marvel and Disney movies, and your corporate pride advertisements, these things, the world sort of opens up, and you find yourself in a new space where the electric tribalism of Bitcoin can spread.
That was powerful. That was powerful. But it's radical. Would you call it radical?
It's illogical to the system.
Current paradigm.
To the system. They make the argument, Bitcoin is volatile, it'll never succeed. But we have hodlers of last resort now. Pierre Rochard leads them in
valiantly
in phalanx formation. But so this is a big issue that there's some people that are unwilling to enter the cult mindset because they're timid, they're just milquetoast about it, and they have like that libertarian like romanticism of their own defeat, where they almost don't want to believe that the revolution, and not to use such a cliche word, but that it is so near at hand. Fiat money is on a 40-year evolution.
This is close to 50 now. Shit, we're getting close to
40,
closer to 50 than 40.
45, I guess, exactly.
No.
The Bretton Woods system ended 1973.
73 or 71?
Oh boy. Someone Google it.
I thought it was 71.
Someone Google it. So Either way, we have the formations of big cracks in the system. We have Brexit against the odds. We have Trump against the odds. And now it's our turn to kick this can down the road, or really more serve a ball into the statist's court that they just can't return.
What do you say to the people that we refer to you, and I would consider myself in here too, as alt-right terrorist or
What do I say?
Pushing an alt-right agenda or something like that?
What do I say to them?
Or,
Bitcoin is an outlet for your frustrations.
Right.
It succinctly addresses, many of the ills that you want to see dealt with.
let's dive into this.
Okay, well, suppose fiat money dries up. That also means that, say, there needs to be drastic fiscal scale back, squeezes all of the colleges that are just breeding grounds, IQ shredding institutions that turn out people that all think Keynes, and study, what type of frilly subjects I'm referring to.
I was talking about the Laffer curve and dumb bullshit like that. I was subjected to that as well.
So truly, if we can get Bitcoin to its escape velocity, and at this point, I want to call on all of the free market and quasi-libertarian, even conservative think tanks in Washington and around the world, Mises, Hoover, AEI, CEI, Cato, Reason Atlas, the Charles Koch Institute, Heritage. You guys can be providing great covering fire for Bitcoin. Help Bitcoin get out the door. We can't just leave it up to the fifth pillar, the Chris Giancarlos and the Jay Claytons. Let's devise a praxis on how we get Bitcoin to succeed here, and not even like we're going to figure it out. It is on a winning trajectory. It simply could use some lubrication.
Lube's never a bad thing. But no, I completely agree. But I want to bring it back to like the climate of our current society or current pop culture or whatever. Like there's such a left-right divide. Like the Koch brothers are evil. Like all these left, alt-right. Like people just get thrown in the alt-right. Like if you're like even like partly conservative, like
certainly the left will.
How do we get over this? So is it like it? Like I hate saying the left versus the right because I really hate it.
But it's true. The left will come out against Bitcoin.
What do you mean?
Because it shatters.
Well,
it shatters.
What is the left? Can we break the left versus the right? Is that possible?
I would say it's almost a meaningless distinction now.
What do you mean?
It's the left relies upon the right the same way the right relies upon the left to secure the exclusion of libertarian politics.
But do you think it's correct to divvy things up like that starkly? Just like, hey, it's the left or the right. There's no nuance. There's no.
I mean, I would even say that there's something in Bitcoin for the Bernie Bros. If they don't take the blue pill dyed red, but instead realize where the suppressed remainder of the middle class, etc., is being held down, Bitcoin has somewhat of a solution.
Yeah, well, it has the solution, which is allowing you to save your money, like because right now it's impossible.
Yeah, fix your time preferences. Don't be corralled toward taking loans that you can't afford.
Well, it's not even fixing your time preference. It's giving you something that allows you to fix your time preference. Because even under this system, if you fix your time preference,
you need the tools.
Exactly. And that's what I've been.
Bitcoin is a tool.
It's a tool.
Technologies are all tools.
Exactly. It's a tool. That's what I said with Carpe Noctem a couple weeks ago. Like, it is just a tool to help you save your money across time. And again, this is the theme of the podcast for the last couple months, I think, is that we're just born into this system and we don't even like know what themes to look for or like know what is. We are so confused and so bastardized, have been so thrown into this system that is filled with conspicuous consumption and consume that we. I say we've been lulled into never questioning our reality.
Some of us, certainly.
Some of yeah, I'll say most of us.
Sure. On that side, just compare the roadmaps for the evolution of the economy over the next say 2 decades between the Bitcoin crowd and the legacy crowd. They're proposing the digital fiat currencies. Andrew Levin and Michael Bordo had a proposal for the Fed coin. I mean, this is
India's going for it.
A bunch of places are going to try it.
China's gone for it. China's there.
They're going for it.
China's there. China's got us.
They're not going to succeed. You have their completely, demented cheerleaders like Ken Rogoff at Harvard. The curse of cash. Like, okay, Ken, take away all our cash. See if it doesn't hasten the adoption of Bitcoin.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, how can you seriously vie for like an Orwellian cashless society like Ken Rogoff? Ken Rogoff wrote a fucking book about it.
Yeah, that was the subject of one of my econ theses at school.
What was the conclusion of your thesis?
Bad idea. But having said all this, I still think that Bitcoiners do need a measure of humility because there could certainly be a reversal and this all flies back in our face.
How do you see this playing out?
So in the situation where Bitcoin just ends up dominating the world in a bad way, it's just that we don't solve privacy. So Andrew Polstra, scriptless scripts, and Schnorr signatures, please hurry up. But we need fungibility. Otherwise, we're going to have, the Southern Poverty Law Center put you on a list because they struck a deal with blockchain.info and they parse the whole blockchain and, sorry, you're non-personed. And there's a cybernetic guarantee of your exclusion from the
economy.
The anointed economy. And so
I would agree.
This has historical precedent. Surveillance capitalism has been around since the advent of the internet. I would strongly...
Amazon just signed a contract with Washington State and Oregon, I believe, to do facial recognition shit with law enforcement there.
It's happening. I mean, China's even further along than anyone. But I would recommend following on Twitter Yasha Levin. He documents the involvement of Silicon Valley in surveillance.
Palantir, fuck you.
Peter Thiel. He's a maximalist.
He is, but like Palantir, what? We don't have to go into Palantir.
So the point being, the new sort of global village, if it turns out that way, will have its own vulnerabilities, much as the Aztecs all got sick when the European arrived. So if you connect everything, there's going to be a backlash, sort of to the tune of Nassim Taleb's grievance against Monsanto, which is, hey, you're playing with these genomes, and it will have a macro
evolution.
It will have a macro effect on on biodiversity that is completely above and beyond your ability to model. So my optimism is against this sort of reversal would be that Bitcoin turns out to be a very flat tool. Email, for example, is a protocol. It hasn't dominated us yet, unless you're Hillary Clinton. And
oh shit.
and so we do have reason for optimism, but let's not think it's a slam dunk.
Don't rest on our laurels.
For example, a person that we quote a lot, Metcalfe's law on the value of networks. He predicted that the internet would die in what he termed the gigalapse in 1996. Okay, so
I hate when people reference Metcalfe's law.
So you can be smart. You can be smart about it and still be flat wrong.
Right? Well,
but yeah. So, but either way, even if we do, even if Bitcoin creates a second system of surveillance, bear in mind there's still a current system of surveillance that is on. So 1984, you know the drill. Sit in the corner where the telescreen can't see you, and commit to being a hodler if you can afford it. And remember that network topology is only half the story. You need a social decentralism as well. So, spread the good word about Bitcoin to your friends.
Get it out there, people. This is a freedom-enabling technology, and the more hands it is in, the stronger the network becomes, the stronger the feedback loop becomes, and
then you meme about it.
Then you meme about it. Then you go to
throw it into the meta.
You layer. Go to DC. You show up at a Federal Reserve congressional hearing, and you hold up signs behind Janet Yellen and ridicule her in her purple suit.
Yeah, ridicule is asymmetric. The Fed never really got a response to me.
It's a funny thing. Has anybody reached out to you from
No. I mean, there were some people that there were journalists, but the Fed never caught up with me.
It's a shame. They should have. They should have brought you in and hired you to dismantle them.
Oh dear.
So let's talk about open source technology and self-sovereignty. You're big on defense distributed, 3D printing guns. What does the world look like where anybody can arm themselves with software? Well, because at the end of the day, that's what these 3D printed guns are, correct?
Sure. It gives you it incorporates another soundness into your world. Sound money, sound diet in the case of meat maximalism, or it's another insurance policy, and it rounds you out as a civic being, in that you don't have to outsource your personal security.
We're in New York State. You're not allowed to own a gun here. I went to college in Chicago, in Cook County in particular. Guns are outlawed, but it was the most dangerous city from a murder rate perspective for most of my tenure in college. The gun debate's a huge debate, and it gets muddied. I believe, because a few bad apples, I don't want to say they ruin the spoil, but it's
I mean, again, this is just simple, negative arguments for liberty. We have rights protected because they have costs. And, some people are going to get burned with Bitcoin. They're going to get their keys stolen. They're going to buy BitConnect, etc.
I've gotten shit jacked in Bitcoin. I've gotten I was on MinPal. MinPal back in 2014, for all you freaks that don't know, it was an exchange based out of the UK, London in particular, that was run by a total con artist, and he one day exit scammed the whole exchange. It took a lot of their fucking Bitcoin and altcoins. Like, this stuff's gonna happen, but I've never kept any coin on exchange since that day in 2014.
Don't do it.
You got to learn these lessons.
Don't do it. But ultimately, my sort of parting words to everyone would be just...
We're parting already?
Oh. I feel like we've been going for a while by now.
We're an hour and 15 in. Yeah, technically an hour and 45 after the reshuffle.
My message would be, and Jill Carlson is a friend of mine, and she says, Bitcoin sign guy, I can't be seen with you, because I would say stuff like Bitcoin is e-sharia and you are called to a digital jihad. But, let's fucking go. The time is here. The Declaration of Independence has
hashed into the Genesis block.
It has the exordio, which is at the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. It's the when in the course of human events it becomes necessary, da da da. It's a very polite way of beginning a hot revolution.
Well,
Bitcoin has already issued its exordio. It was chancellor on the brink. Okay, the 80s and 90s, the hacktivist fervor is dying off, but now we have a real way to address neatly many of our grievances.
We can do this damn thing, people.
Yeah, the world is still very vital. There's still space to play. You can think of Bitcoin and your activity within the Bitcoin space as Friedrich Schiller's play drive, which is where you act and you are acted upon, and this is an extremely fulfilling way of being. And you're here. You have a front row seat for this huge monetary experiment. Go for it. We have a new frontier. There's an outpost. They need help. Go.
We need help.
Go for it.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Keep that imagination. And
we're not done this conversation. We're not ending it. You're trying to end this. I can feel it. We're not ending it because we have a lot more to dive into. Like, oh boy, Bitcoin sign guy's a little drunk. He said too much Reka vodka. But
in honor of, I don't know,
the Russian World Cup.
Just Russia in general. They've been champs lately.
But it's funny how it all comes together, right? Because you have Bitcoin, you have defense distributed, you have things like PGP. Again, I want to harken back to, like, how do we, I don't want to call anybody a normie, but, like, how do we get normal people interested in this stuff? Like, is it an inevitability that they will be forced to become interested in it? Or is there a need to go out and go door to door and be like, hey, you should probably think about this?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is a mind virus, so it spreads contagiously. But eventually, it's, as we said, a technology. And I do like the technology analogy that Bitcoin's not an iPhone. It's gunpowder. Use it or it will be used on you.
Exactly.
Don't buy treasury bonds. Don't save in dollars. Buy Bitcoin.
This is radical though for people. Like, how do we help people get over the radical statements that we're making? Like, is it a Satoshi moment where it's like, hey, if you can't see it, like, I don't have time to waste on you, or
I don't know. Submit. That's my my only word.
See, what I worry about is, like, the climate today, like, especially politically. Listen, I'm not for Trump at all, but, like, the climate against him is just so adversarial. It's like, it's so blinded by visceral hatred for one singular man that people will just throw rationality to the wayside to make sure this man comes down.
But
that I'm just applying this to Trump right now. Like, this gets applied to many situations, and it's like, fuck. People are angry, and they don't know where to center that anger, and it's like,
I would say Bitcoin is an eloquent expression of that.
right? I would too, but people think Bitcoin's like alt-right, like tech bro.
Yeah, it's not
libertarian, bro.
It's not for the. It's not supposed to be. We're not all doing this Bitcoin thing just for the Silicon Valley venture capitalists to buy their Teslas. It's bigger than that.
Let them buy their Teslas and go up in flames.
Hey, that's fooled by randomness. Nassim Taleb owns a Tesla, buddy.
Nassim, you might have made a bad decision.
No. I mean, that's fooled by randomness. Every time one of those Uber autonomous vehicles crashes, that's fooled by randomness.
I don't know, Tesla in particular. The engineering of their cars are. You wholeheartedly disagree.
My brother is the chemical engineer. He's on there's a college league of electrical car racing teams, and he does that. So he designs electric cars, race cars that look like Formula One things. And
really,
I'll have to defer to him on that.
Bitcoin sign guy, you've come from a very established family.
No. I mean, my father, neocon, my grandfather, CIA. So it really was the. I've had the table has been against me as far as clawing my way out of the neoliberal superstatist mindset.
What do you have to say to all the haters out there?
To all the haters?
Yeah.
Just love.
Peace and love?
Love, yeah.
Love will save the day. I know you already gave a parting note, but do you have anything else you want to end on?
I'll Soli Deo Gloria. But for
the sun?
Only to glorify God. Bitcoin isn't a god.
AMDJ. You heard it here first. Buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin sign guy, are we able to find out more about you?
Please Photoshop me into more pictures of current events. That's all I got. You'll know it when you see it.
That was a very enlightening and drunk conversation.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I fucked up on the first recording.
It's all good.
I owe you. I love all you freaks for listening. Peace and love.